Good morning, YouTube, and happy Friday. I am exhausted this morning. Woo, man, it's been a full week, 5 days, so that's probably why. I've definitely been busy at school, spending a lot of time here. I've had students come and pick up some materials this week, so I've been staying here probably till about 4 o'clock every day. Wednesday was an entirely virtual day for us, so I was at home at least one day, which was nice. It's nice to mix it up. I find that as much as I love being at school and teaching at school, I do like having that one day in between. It just kind of breaks up my week a little bit. But here I am on Friday. I have all of my AP classes today. So what my students are working on are Maxwell-Boltzmann distributions. We'll be doing the POGIL activity from the POGIL book. The only modification I made is I just didn't assign the extension questions. Sometimes I assign them, sometimes I don't. Honestly, based on whether or not I feel like we'll have enough time to do the entire POGIL in a class period, that's kind of ultimately will dictate whether or not I'll do the extension questions with them. So I opted not to do it because I wanted to give my students time to look at some scoring guidelines because I assigned an AP problem the other day. I wanted them to work on the AP problem and then show them the scoring guidelines so they can kind of just compare and see how they did. So it'll be a jam-packed day, and then any time that's left over, I did make an ed puzzle on real versus ideal gases. So my students, if they have time, will have an opportunity to look at that. So I'm going to head into my classroom, start getting set up for the day, and then I'll check back in with you guys a little bit later on. I just finished with my period 5-6 class. It was a good class period, very busy. The students were working very well on their Maxwell-Boltzmann distributions. That's a great team activity. I love it because I feel like it really brings to light some of the misconceptions that we see with students when talking about temperature and kinetic energy and velocity. So I love that one. I'm really glad that I chose to do that one. And then one thing that I actually just finished is I went through and I graded the last few questions. I think it's question 26, 27, and 28. I graded it as a formative assessment, and then I inputted it into our online grading system so that I can have a better idea of how well the students are understanding the information. That's one thing I love about POGILs is towards the end of the team activity, you have some questions that are kind of like the culminating questions of the activity. So you can use those as a very quick, informal, formative assessment. You can, of course, assign some of the assessment questions that you see in the back, which are also very good. I just didn't want to make more work for myself to have to create something, so I just opted to use the questions that are already embedded into the activity. And then by putting them into our online grading system, the students can see how they did. Obviously, I did put comments in, and since they were working as teams today, I only had to put comments in 6 times because I have 6 learning teams with about 3 to 4 members in each learning team. So that also made things a little bit easier for me, so I'm not so bogged down with the grading. I'm going to quickly grade my period 9 class, and then I'll hop back on here and show you how I asked my students to reflect on the scoring guidelines. Well, I never did get a chance to hop back on here after I was done grading the quizzes because I had a colleague come in and we have our SGOs, our student growth objectives, due next week. So we were chatting about that. So I wasn't able to actually get the grading done. So I thought I would pop on here now and talk to you about how I'm having my students in the AP class reflect on their FRQs. So I literally came in this morning and I was like, I don't have enough time to grade all of this work all the time. And I was like, how can I make it so that the students are able to reflect and grade their own work and yet hold them accountable for what they're doing? And so I thought an easy way to do this would be to have some sort of self-reflection form that the students could use to help identify the scores that they would earn on the AP exam if these questions were actually included as the FRQ. A couple of days ago, I had the students complete their first free response question. It was on gases because we're studying gases, but what I like about this question is it does incorporate some of the earlier concepts that we talked about, for example, like empirical molecular formula determination and things like that. I had the students complete their AP FRQ on a Jamboard. I did have them work in their learning teams. And then today, I had them complete a Google form that provided the scoring guidelines from the College Board, and then I also embedded that within a Google form. One thing that I didn't know that you could do with Jamboard is that you could incorporate pictures of your Bitmoji, for example. So as the students were working on their FRQ, I would go in, and if they did a great job with the question, I would write excellent, and so it would be my Bitmoji. And then some of the students struggled with a couple of the questions, so I would put uh-oh in there so they knew that they had to go back and revise. So that was kind of fun. The students were actually very surprised to see my Bitmoji on their Jamboard, but it was cute. It was nice to see that. I also really like the fact that I feel like my students took it very seriously. Not all the students, for example, gave themselves 100% on their FRQ. It looked like they were really taking the time to examine the work that they showed and then what the College Board is expecting. Now for me, I'm not an AP reader, so I'm not always 100% sure if they come to me with questions like, can I do it like this? Can I do it like that? I just tell them that the College Board will award credit for good chemistry, and that's really what we're looking for. And so the way that we show that we're doing good chemistry is by showing the work and including units and using evidence and data to help support our answers. And so I really appreciated the fact that these students spent the time, but also were asking questions about the way that they showed their work versus the way the College Board showed it. So it really, I think, showed that the students were reflecting, and that was the number one thing that I wanted to get across to the students. I think also by doing this exercise, it's one thing for a teacher to say, like, you need to show your work, you need to include units, you need to, but the fact that I actually was able to show them something from the College Board that told them what they had to show, I think also drove that point home, like, hey, I really should be showing the work appropriately. So this video is going to be definitely a little shorter this week. It was a very crazy week trying to get everything done, and I have a very crazy weekend ahead of me as well. So I'm going to quickly finish up some stuff here. I have students coming in for office hours, and then I am going to head home and hopefully maybe I'll go out to dinner or something tonight. But I hope you had a wonderful week with your students, and I wish you a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to connecting with you all next week.